So I started my new compost pile using a lot of grass and everything we've been pulling from our new garden area. This is going to make great compost and it'll go really quickly. I just wanted to show a couple of things about it. One, the guinea pigs like the grass, so I kind of hate to compost it all, but they can't eat it as fast as it'll compost, or it'll go bad. And we've got a lot of other food for them anyway. We get a lot of kitchen scraps and everything. So, but they sure are enjoying this little bit of grass that I put in there. So a lot of people say, oh, don't put crabgrass in your compost, or you got to put this or that or something else. And we just throw it all in here. And I've done this for years. It works great. We've got a few sticks in here. We've got, whatever came out of the stuff. But you can see there's an awful lot of crabgrass. And we've had a lot of people here just going, no, you're going to just have it to be terrible and you're trying to grow crabgrass. No, that's what'll happen is this heats up and it kills all the crabgrass. It kills all the seeds. It kills everything. That's the whole point of it. And if you've got a lot of grass in your compost, it will definitely get hot. Now I've got to water this because it's very dry, but I'll be putting some water on it. And also wanted to show you one of the reasons I like this particular design. We're kind of tight on space in here, as you can imagine, but our wheelbarrow will just come up in here and we can just turn and fill this. So we've got these doors that we just slide in, or as we're taking them out. See, we've taken some of these off of here, and we can, as I'm going to move this stuff over today, I'll take this door out, and then I'll move all of this material into there, and I'll also move the one that's over here. I'll move all this material, and so these two will be empty, and we can kind of start again. But that'll give some moisture and other materials in here, and that should fill that compost bin up to just almost all the way top. That'll be probably one of the fullest that we've done in a long time. I usually fill it up to about that third one, and there's a little bit of space on the top, and we don't often have enough material to go ahead and fill it, but today we happen to have an awful lot. So I'm going to close this, put these doors back in, and just keep putting the doors in as I keep filling it, and then we'll see how that goes. We should have a pretty full compost pile, and then we'll let that sit for a while, and it should get hot. And well, that's the way you make compost. Just throw in about anything you've got. I wish we had more leaves. We've got these trees, but they don't really drop the leaves that much, and so we put them in as we get them. We're looking for some more other carbon type material, because it is nice to mix the both. There's no question it's better to have both of them in there. And I'm always asking, where can we get some other carbon material? And we're looking for sources for that. But in the meantime, we're making compost from just greens. Very little brown, as people call it. We've got an awful lot of green, and it works very well. So I'll finish this up and show you what it looks like when we're all done. Just a quick add on here. I just added a bag of stuff. Hey, you talk about stinky. This has been sitting for, I don't know, several days. They brought it over and we haven't had a chance to pour it in. And this is kind of the amount of stuff and the type of stuff we get, like say all the time. We get a lot of limes or orange peels and stuff, and we throw it all in the composter. Here's some carrot. You talk about nasty, gooey. Well, I got to not make very much of a video here because it's a bit stinky, and need to get that turned in under this all this other stuff. But we put all of this in here, and we're going to take that little piece of plastic out. They're always throwing vegetable binders and stuff like that in the compost. Anyway, it all works. And I wouldn't say the stinkier the better, but it's okay if you get stuff like this that's been in a plastic bag for a few days. Get all you can get, because it all makes great compost. So we're going to get this turned in and get some of this other stuff that we've been using and move it over here to get the smell down. Also, I may use a little bit of garden lime, calcium carbonate. That helps keep the smell down. The reason I use that is because we're sitting right next door to a school, so we don't want to have the smell be going into the school and causing them problems. Anyway, that's it. We're kind of lucky. This particular building that's here is their bathroom, so if they have smells, they tend to think it's theirs, but we don't ever want this to smell for them. So anyway, that's just another point, but it's time I got to get this thing turned under. Well, as I got done wetting this down and packing it down, you can see that the level went way down. It's all the crabgrass and stuff that's there. And I remembered we had a trash can full of shredded paper that we were going to use for a worm project, and that project is going to be a little bit later on, and we get lots of paper. This is old books, school books, and telephone books, homework papers, things like that that's just been broken into strips, and we're going to put that in the compost here. Just going to wet it down. Let me grab the hose and just wet it down real good. Yeah, I know the guinea pigs don't like the noise of when they spray. They run. We built them a little house out of egg cartons, and they seem to like it a lot. They can run in and hide, and they're pretty happy with that. So they come out and eat or things. They're not very much pets around here. They're really being raised for farm animals, livestock, for creating more and creating food. So I don't know if you've ever eaten a guinea pig. There's restaurants in the U.S. do serve it. It's not really one of my favorites, but it's okay. I prefer rabbit or something like that. But anyway, we're talking about composting here, and so we're going to take that and just throw that in as a whole layer. And I could save it and take it bits and pieces and layer through, but what I find with compost is it kind of does its own thing about mixing. And then when we take all this other household garbage stuff that we were going to put in and we throw it in there, we're going to turn it eventually anyway, and so this will all get mixed in. And this is a great source of carbon for us, which is the one thing that we're kind of missing around here. We don't have a lot of leaves and different things. So hey, school papers, we got a lot of those, and we're going to start trying to use that. This is the first time I'm using this kind of a carbon base, so I'm not sure how the compost will turn out, but we're going to see in a few days. I hate to keep jumping in and out here, but wow, I just took out one pitchfork full of this, and I wanted to just say, a lot of people say you can't get compost unless you got a 3-foot high or better stack of compost, and I generally agree with that. However, this is pretty well composted, and it's not more than 2 feet high, so I just wanted to show that it is very possible, even with a small compost pile, you can get pretty good compost. Now this has been sitting for, I don't know, we keep putting new stuff in it pretty often, until about 2 weeks ago. So that's why we've got some fresh stuff in there. But before that, this has been built for maybe since, well, the 1st of September. This is now middle of October, so about a month and a half. This has been, because we only moved this on the 1st of September. We moved this compost over here, and this is all fresh new stuff. And this is all from the garden, from the kitchen scraps that they make from the other house. Like we say, we get about 25 pounds of that every week. A couple of times a week they bring over a pretty good bag of stuff. And I was just starting to move this over into the new pile and tried that. I'm wondering if I want to just do some filtering of that to try to take out some extra compost. Probably not, though. I think the better thing is we add it all into the one pile. That was the original plan, and I'll move this pile and this pile over onto that one, and then we'll let it all sit and mix it up after probably a week. Since there's so much good stuff in here, we may be able to mix that real fast. So anyway, just wanted to show you it is possible to have a compost out of a short pile. Well, once again, cutting in here to show you some stuff off this 2-foot compost pile. I mean, as the more I dig, the better it gets. And I don't know if you can see, but we got steam rising, which is just what you're looking for in your compost pile. Now, I don't have a compost thermometer, unfortunately. We're having trouble finding one here in Ecuador. And ordering one would take like 2 months to get it from the US. So I don't know what it is. I just look at it. I know I throw stuff in and it composts. It just does its thing. I don't have any fancy science. Don't have anything like that. I just know put your organic materials in, it will compost. Keep it a little moist, and most of the time we don't add water. It's pretty rare that we add water to these compost piles because it gets it from the grass, or all the different organic materials that we throw in there. So we don't use much of that. But we do water it once in a great while. Now, I don't have any worms in here, which always bothered me because we're not getting worms like I think we ought to get worms. Everywhere I've always had a compost pile before, we've always had a massive amount of worms in the bottom. Now, not where it's hot, obviously, because they don't like the heat. They move on down. But we don't see many worms here. I don't know how much steam you're seeing, but it's doing a pretty good job of steaming there. And we just don't do worms. That's why I've made this worm box over here to raise worms and put those back into the garden so we'll get the benefit of the worms, because I'm a firm believer in worms. My dad started in 1963 or 4 or something like that. He started reading about, they just started coming out about vermicomposting, and he was one of the early people that got into that. I never really understood it until this year, and now I'm as old as he is when he passed away. So I'm now starting to really understand the value of that and seeing how really right he was with working on that. But anyway, you can get a compost pile. A short compost pile works just well. Just put your material in, and this compost stuff is great. Certainly good for the flowers and plants and everything. So use that. Use your vermicomposting. That's all what it's about, and it helps the planet, and well, you get better food. So I opened this second one. I got the first pile all done over here. We're getting pretty tall over here as expected. I opened this one up and wanted to show you that not all compost piles are always perfect. And one of the problems here, we had a lot of roses, and that's where these big sticks are in here. We did get leaves, which I was real happy to have, but they didn't really compost well. They were too close to the edge, and we never got enough water in there. And you can see that there's signs of burning over here, or not really burning, but it got hot, obviously. And so we know that some compost was working, but we didn't have enough water in this particular section. But since these were under the animals, we thought that because, well, you can see, I don't know if you're watching this whole video, it's been maybe an hour overall that I've been here, and you can see they love this grass stuff, and they've eaten the cabbage and lettuce and stuff and celery that I stuck over here. Push this down a little bit so they can get to it better, but they really like this grass. Anyway, they're constantly urinating and constantly, their droppings are coming out. And so I kind of really expected that the center was better managed, but it isn't. And also I saw here, for the first time, I'm seeing a, where is he? There he is, a slug. That's the first one of those I've seen in Ecuador. So that's an interesting thing. We've got them. They, you know, they eat stuff and do things too. So little animals are generally pretty good to have in your compost pile, and you kind of expect to see them. But I had expected to see this be a little bit better composted because of the animals are above it. We were kind of hoping it would be. I don't see that it's too wet. It's quite moist in there, but it's not too wet, and just didn't break down the way we expected. So anyway, we're living and learning. We're going to keep trying. I think one of the benefits, actually, I think over here was that we had the roses at the bottom. As you can see, I've left some of those sticks and things. I'm thinking maybe the air was really good in that one, and that's why it broke down so well. But then we have a similar kind of thing over here, and it didn't break down as well. So somewhere there was a different mix. You can, you know, you can have bad compost sometimes, but you just take this stuff, turn it back in. I'm going to move all of that over into this pile and water it down real good, and it'll just do again. That's all you can do. And you know, it didn't turn out to be perfect, but we weren't ready to have this anyway. It was time for just to turn it. So in this first turn, we learned a little bit. That you will, every time you turn your compost, every time you work with it, it's not always perfect. Well, I found the problem. Why this compost didn't work right. Someone had put in these roses, and I told them that was okay, but they also put in a bunch of branches from some tree, or I don't know what it's all from, but those were just piled in here, and I was digging and digging. They were just all along in here. So that's why the compost didn't work. There just wasn't enough good material in there, and I just picked that whole pile up, or most of that pile, just in one big handful. So that's a good reason why it didn't compost correctly. I'm hoping in the back it's going to be a little bit better, but you know, when I'd come, I saw that they had put some of this in. I said, oh yeah, that's okay. We just put all the vegetable stuff on top of it, but I didn't realize that they'd put all these other branches and things in the bottom, and it didn't compost, because branches, they take forever to decompose. I don't know what the best way to do with them is, but you know, leave them all in a great big pile for years and years and years is about the only thing you can do, or you know, use them to make a fire if you need to. I don't like all the smoke and ash and stuff, but if you got a wood chipper, great. But I don't have one. You know, that kind of is a luxury that we don't have in Ecuador. So I'm not sure what we're going to be able to do environmentally friendly with all these sticks. But we'll figure out something. But that's why this didn't compost. All right, I finally got this second one cleaned out, and all the wood out of it. This is why it didn't compost. I mean, it's just amazing how much wood is in there. Don't put sticks like that in your compost pile. It won't work. Now I'm going to make an experiment, because this one had worked. So I'm leaving some of the sticks over here, and we're going to start adding new material in there, and I'm going to see if this will work with like a 2-foot pile again, and if that really helps give it air, which is what I think is happening, or happened. But when it had so much wood, it wasn't possible, because there just wasn't anything to compost. So we're not going to have that under here anymore. But now, wound up with a compost pile. I think officially this is the tallest compost pile I've ever built, and I've always built the wood up high enough, but I've never had this much material to go in. Now we're going to see after another day or two what's going to happen. I'm even going to water it here in just a minute. Well, in fact, I'll grab the water hose and just start to water it, and we'll see that probably, we should see that this is going to go down, and it could go down considerably just even in watering. This is decently wet, but I'm gonna give it a real good soaking. As you can see, some of that last stuff that came out here is actually pretty good compost, and we might could go ahead and filter that through my new trommel and get some compost. But what I really want to do is I want to let this sit. Now I've done a turn, and it's been a month and a half since we really kind of started all this, and we got a good turn out of these other two piles. So that's what I want to try to do here, is see, let this sit. You know, now it's got those weeds and stuff in the very bottom. It's got some paper down in there. It's got the two smaller compost bins. One of them was pretty good, and one of them had a lot of wood in it. So that's what we're dealing with here. And this is the, I believe it's the 9th of October. And so we'll let this sit for a few days and come back and see what it looks like once it's had some time to sit. I'm not going to put any other water than what you're seeing right here, and I'm not going to do anything else to it. I'm not going to turn it or do anything. And we see that it's, I think you can tell that it's already going down quite a bit. It was up over the top of the wood there, and now it's not. So I'm not going to do anything else with it. Just let this water sit. We'll come back in another, I don't know, several days, see where we are. It's not very hot here now. The rains have just started. The rains we usually get in the afternoons here in Ecuador. But we have a cover over the top of this, so we won't get any more moisture in there. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do what I was talking about in an earlier video. Sorry about the shaky video there. I need a camera person. One of these days I'll be able to afford such a thing. We don't have a big budget here. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover this with the cardboard. And because I had done that on the thing before, never covered them before other than just have a roof over this. And but it's always been enclosed for the most part. So I think I've always had it covered really in that respect. But I never covered it with like cardboard. So I'm going to just leave that cardboard in place, and we'll see what happens here in a couple of days.